It is 10:28 here on the East Coast on a Wednesday. Welcome to Twitchline, your home for relationship advice. Here on Twitch, I am your host Hodo. Joining me as always is my best friend and co-caster, Mr. Acorn. How are you doing today?
Oh, very well, man. Good evening. You doing good?
Doing good, doing good. Had some family issues this week, so sending a quick shout out to my cousin, who's getting over some brain surgery but is recovering very, very well. There was a tumor in her head that was, they said, the size of a robin's egg, which is crazy. But
That
everything
is.
but she is recovering nicely, and went to visit her recently. So probably will go back again, but man, you don't wish it upon anyone.
No, man, that's heavy.
It
And,
is.
bless her, man. That's tough. But, it's great that she had so much family in the area. You couldn't go spend time with her and help her through it.
Absolutely. Like Sunday when we went to visit after the surgery and she was waking up, they had her on all sorts of crazy medication. Like there was literally a line coming out of her room in order to visit her because there was just so much love she was being shown because her mom is very, very popular in the area, and it's just one of those things in which was very, very appreciated by everybody. That everybody came out, so it was really awesome to see. So really, really wonderful to see that. So it was really cool. But in the meantime, let's get some of our social stuff out of the way. If you are interested in sending us some comments or articles or anything you want to talk about, you can go ahead and contact us here via email at twitchlinelove@gmail.com, or you can tweet us here on Twitter. At Twitchline is the Twitter address. You can also watch us on YouTube now. We are streaming live onto YouTube, and you can visit us there. If you click on the link below here on Twitch, go directly to our channel. You can search Twitch line on YouTube, and you should be able to get to us and find us there. Watch us all of our older streams there on YouTube. That's where we archive all of the streams. Mr. Acorn here has been adding timestamps to all of the videos, so you can go directly to a topic in any of the videos, so that way you don't have to go and search for your topic that you might have heard on a previous Twitch line. Also, if you're also wanting to hear us on the go, you can click down below, search on SoundCloud. Yes, you can take us along on SoundCloud. Take us on your phone, your laptop, your iPad, or any mobile device, and listen to us that way. Just search Twitchline on SoundCloud, and you will see us right there, and you can hear all of our shows that we upload at the end of the show. We will upload those in a couple days, and you can hear us there on SoundCloud anywhere you want to bring your phone, and it'd be great. So, Acorn, our first topic of the evening is a really sort of hard topic for a lot of people because it is about rejection and understanding how to reject someone if you're in a relationship. It's one of those things in which people hate doing, especially if it's somebody that you do start to learn to care about, but it has to be done because maybe you're not incompatible. Maybe you found someone else, all myriad of reasons, but it's just one of those things that I think everybody has to go through if they plan on being a relationship, but understanding how to do it properly might be might be difficult.
Yeah, definitely. It's, everyone is, most of our conversation here so far, we spent time talking about how to deal with rejection, being rejected,
Mhm.
right? And how to keep from being jaded as it relates to that. But we really have yet to speak on the subject from the point of view of the rejector. And while I guess a lot of people would argue that it's the easier side of the equation, there still can be some difficulties that come along with it. And especially depending on the dynamic and how deep into the relationship you are, there can be very different methods and different results. So we're going to go through all that tonight.
Yep.
And we're going to start off by looking in dating over 30. And our user is not content to crawl. And she did not list her age, but we know she's over 30, so let's go ahead and see what her story is. Uh, the, what's the best way to reject someone? I met a guy for a drink. The total bar tab for both of us was $15 and some change. I offered to pay my half, but I only had a $20 bill. So he said he'd take care of it and I could take care of drinks at the next bar. He took his $4 and change and did not leave a tip. Strike one. I paid for drinks at the next place and left a nice tip. He ended up driving me to his place, which reeked of urine. That's disgusting.
Mm.
Not sure if his dog pees everywhere or what was going on, but it was bad. Strike two. I asked to be driven home. He had road rage the entire way and kept texting on his phone. Strike three, you're out. He sent me a sweet message in the morning. I'm not interested. What is the best way to reject someone? Do I say sorry, I'm not interested? Do men prefer to know the reason? Or do I ghost? Adulting sucks. We're going to get to that part later. But honestly, my first response is just, sorry, Chiquita. Sorry about your date.
Mhm.
Sounds like this guy really couldn't wait to show you who he was, though. And so, in a way, you're kind of lucky for that because after that, you can just be done. You're not going to be hemming and hawing about whether or not it could be something or does he have this, not this. Like this dude straight up showed you, bang, bang, bang. I'm not the guy for you. And so, there's some simple uh, silver lining to that. And as far as like how to reject this guy, I mean, sorry, I'm not interested. It honestly should be enough, but I don't think other people are like that evolved yet. And this is not just men, women to men or men to women. It can be any which way. If you have someone who is empathetic, a thinking person who has experience and like is not caught up in themselves, something like I'm not interested or this isn't uh, it, this is not what I'm looking for. That can be enough for them. But most people are going to have their feelings hurt, and when people's feelings hurt, they react in a number of ways. Sometimes, uh, which can lead to really kind of explosive and disgusting results. So, before we get into all of it, I just wanted to ask Self on here, uh,
Mhm.
what do we owe people after having gone out on a date with them, and when we know there isn't going to be a second date? Like, do we owe them anything?
If it's a bad first date, you I think that at the maximum you can be really nice and be like, had an okay time, but I don't think it's going to work out, and then just leave it at that. I mean, most of the time people will be like, wait, what? I don't know if most people will have the guts, but some people will actually be like, well, I thought you had a good time. You can answer that, you can't, but I mean, it's one of those things. It's like it's one date. It's not really much of an expectation, honestly, of any sort. It seemed like he was definitely interested, but she was not in this particular sense. And sweet message this morning. That's nice, but three strikes already. At that point, she knew that not going to happen. Maybe it turns into a friendship or something like that. But uh, she basically could say is like, "Thank you for the message, but I don't think I'm interested in going out any further. Uh, hope you find someone. That's it. Game over. That's all." This is one of those times in which people sometimes have unrealistic expectations when it comes to going on our next date. If one person doesn't see it, and one person's immediately like, "Nah, this is not it," it can be really hard for that one person. But that other person has no obligation to say why. There could be a myriad of reasons. You don't want to get into that. I mean, there's no point, honestly. You're never going to really see this person again unless this person was a friend of a friend or something like that. And then your friend comes up is like, "Oh, I thought he was going to be a great match for you." And you can tell your friend, and who will probably tell the other person. But you can also tell your friend, it's like, "Yeah, I just didn't feel anything. Sorry." And that's okay. That's being honest. If your friend is insistent about knowing if this was like a hookup or somebody like trying to set you up or something like that, and your friend's insistent about it, you can just tell your friend, it's like, "I don't really want to go into it," and that should end it. Honestly, Unless your friend is nosy or one a busybody who insists on trying to make good for people. We all have friends like that. But if it's just one date, no expectations whatsoever. So that's personal.
Do you think that they owe the person even that to say that they're not interested at all? Is it okay to just disappear into the mists,
Now,
back away
ghosting,
into the bush?
I am very anti ghosting. I mean, that's just me, honestly. I just rather just straight up tell them. It's like, no. It's like, this is not going to work. If you really want to get mean, you can respond by saying, it's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I don't deal with guys who don't tip. And then he gets the hint. And then, and then he might be like, well, what are you talking about? And then if you really want to get into it, then you can get into it. But at that point, if he comes back with like an angry message or something like that, you're in full view to just not say anything. But you've given him a reason, and that's it. It's just common courtesy to say something, but there's levels of it, I think, with regards to how much courtesy somebody can have, especially if it's like, there are levels like, one date, 5 dates, relationship for
Yeah,
6 months,
and
all that
we're
stuff.
actually going to get into that a bit
Yeah.
in a bit, and break it down. I was just curious about your personal take on that. I know that we are from probably the previous generation, so younger kids these days, they do a lot more communication through text
Yeah.
and less over the phone. So I think it's a lot more acceptable to send someone a text message breaking things off and or saying, "Hey, I wasn't feeling that last date, and have a good life," whatever.
My
Uh,
personal rule of thumb
whereas,
on that is
yeah,
if you met through your phone, you can break up through your phone. Especially if it's
yeah.
if it was like a two dater or a one dater. It's like, well, you found them through your phone, you can end it through your phone too. Because that's expected. Now, if you were fixed up or something like that, then maybe you wanna give a call or something. But if they're reaching out via text, text them back. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you got set up by a friend or a family member, then it's in your own best interest to try to break things off. We're saying rejecting people, but like in this case, you just want to let them down a little bit easier because otherwise it's going to come back on you.
Oh yeah.
And it's not going to look good for you. So she actually asked, "Do men prefer to know the reason?" And the answer to that is yes and no. Right? Yes, yes, men definitely want to know where they went wrong, why they didn't measure up, the reason that you weren't going to have them. Right? That's kind of like an ego check, and so men generally want to know, where did I mess up? How do I fix the problem? Uh, and the reason they want to know might be in order to genuinely try to improve. But oftentimes it's because they want to argue with you and they maintain their ideas about themselves that they are just fine and don't need to change. This is not just men, men and women both do this, but there, you know, there is a kind of dissonance between how we see ourselves and how others see us. And when we are challenged, our self view is challenged by someone else. Like, let's say you think you're the life of the party, and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, you're kind of like a wallflower." That's going to make you say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's not how I see myself. That's not what I am. You just don't get it." And here's, that they're going to go into like try to show you or convince you and that kind of thing. So for people, especially when their ego's been hit, you can expect them to come back, and it actually can be pretty aggressive in some cases. Um, so there's that. But then
Mm.
also on the no side, right? Do men prefer to know the reason? No, because people don't like to be criticized. So unless you word your rejection in a way that spares their ego, you're most likely going to be met with something between the realms of like whatever to death threats. And I'm not joking about this. People, they go like 0 to 100 in anger and lash out and try to hurt the person who hurt them. Uh, and that's if you tell them why or if you don't tell them why. Just being rejected is kind of dangerous, and especially for uh, here in America where you know we've got guns, we've got all kinds of stuff that people will just they'll lash out. You can see it, you can read it all the time in the papers. Men killing women, like men's number one reason for death in the country is heart disease, and women's. I mean, besides, I don't know what it is off medically, but
Hmm.
Men are one of the leading causes of death for women in this country. So, do whatever you want with that, but that's kind of messed up.
It is messed up. It's a crazy
Yeah.
statistic when you actually see that. So it's like what?
Yeah, I might have jumbled it up a little bit there, but
Hmm.
I mean, there's truth in there. I just got to figure out where look that up sometime. Um, so one of the great frustrations that people have in dating is that they don't get useful feedback from dating, right? You go out with a girl and you think you're having a good time. You think she's having a good time. Next day, you get that text message that says, "Hey, I'm not feeling it." And you don't necessarily get to know where you messed up along the way or what you could have done better, right? That it's not their responsibility to be the teacher
Hmm.
or the person who like coaches you into being a better dater, and you can't expect that. So it is it can be quite frustrating because that means that you might go into the next date and make the same mistakes and the next and the next and the next, and you might be shooting yourself in the foot, keeping yourself from getting those second dates, third dates, and developing into a relationship. Do you have any thoughts on this, Z?
Well, you can always be honest as a guy if you are open to change, which a lot of guys aren't. But if something doesn't work out and it was a girl that you really had like high expectations on, you can actually ask, "What did I do wrong?" Um, but you have to preface it with a, "I know this isn't going to work out between both of us, but it's one of those things in which I'm actually interested in knowing, is there something that I did that that in any way offended you or you thought was just a deal breaker, because I really don't know." And honesty like that is actually somewhat refreshing uh, to a lot of women, because I think women, they don't have any responsibility to basically teach you how to date somebody, but they'll give their opinion. People are very opinionated if you ask them a question that has an open answer like this, and most people will honestly tell you. Um, as long as you preface it with knowing that you're not going to be in any way violent or in any way disparaged, but you're askingly, truly, honestly asking, like, is there a way you can tell me what I should be doing next? Because I know this is not going to work out. And that actually takes a lot of pressure off of people, and especially off of the guy. There are weird instances where sometimes honesty like that could give you another chance, because it's like, oh, maybe I misjudged this guy and he was just nervous or something like that. That could happen too, um, because a lot of the times women are being used to being lied to, uh, men being dishonest with them, and or they are just arrogant and do not take into consideration any like thoughts or things like that the woman is going through, and it turns them off completely. Honestly, with regards to dating, sometimes can be very, very refreshing with regards to the situation. So that's my opinion. I think it's valid because I actually did it uh, to a girl that I was dating, and this was one of those things that we were dating. I think it was like three or four dates, and she cut it off, and it's like, oh, okay, so this isn't going to work out. And it's like, oh, I get that. And it's like, I was feeling like you weren't really into me, like after like the third date or so, and you were just sort of going out with me and stuff. But was there something that I did wrong or anything like that? And she was honest. She was like, no, not really. I just didn't feel like, the first couple dates were really good, but I just didn't feel it after the third date. It was nothing really that you did. It was just like, it's just I just didn't see myself dating you for a longer period of time, and it was fine. I accepted it and I went on my merry way. But in that particular way, it was almost reassuring, because it's like, oh, it wasn't really anything that I did. And it's like I was probably feeling the same thing she was, and she was really early to cut it off. So it's all good. So, yeah.
Well, that is the nice, happy version of the ending of that story.
It is a very happy
Uh,
version, and
and
it
not everyone
doesn't.
gets that.
Not everybody gets that, but honestly, like when that actually happened, I was okay about it. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
I think people, uh, whether they're getting the news they want, they do appreciate honesty. If they're in the right frame of mind, they'll appreciate honesty. And anyone who's trying to better themselves, if you have a good relationship with honesty, you're in a much better position to better yourself.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're lying to yourself or you're having other people lie to you, like those good friends of yours that say, "No, man, you're doing a fine job. She's unlucky, she or not unlucky. She'd be lucky to be with you." Like, if you're not telling your friend where he's dropping the ball, he's going to keep doing it and he's going to keep getting frustrated. So sometimes a little bit of hard truth will go a long way. All that being said, uh, she actually, our OP here actually asked if ghosting was okay,
No, it's never
and
okay.
I agree with you. I wouldn't say never, right? I think
Well,
ghosting is almost never the answer,
yeah.
right? And I'd only do it or suggest someone do it in the case that you feel threatened, or that if you feel like the person might try to emotionally abuse you and do that kind of thing where they lash out. In that case, if you know it's going to be kind of a toxic situation, it's okay, fade out.
Hmm.
Although, here's what I'll say to you, and this is um, I don't know. This is maybe not what you want to hear, folk, but this is what you get. If you are old enough to date, you are old enough to be responsible for your emotions and the emotions of the persons you went out with. Meaning, ghosting is a cop out move. And if you're doing it because you don't want to deal with someone's feelings or you don't want to deal with the negative feelings of rejecting someone, you're doing a disservice to the person that was with you. And it's rude and it's childish and you just shouldn't do it. Following that, this person who is over 30 years old used the expression adulting. For the love of God, if you are 30 years old or older, stop using the word adulting. You are an adult. What you're doing is just living,
Yeah.
right? And being responsible. This whole concept of adulting is just ridiculous.
I'm guilty of using the term, but the thing about it is I use it in not in a dating sense, but it's like mowing the lawn, taking out the garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I will slap you in your face. I will slap you in the mouth because you're an adult man. You should be doing those things because you are an adult.
Yes.
Adulting is when you're not an adult and you're doing things that you think adults should do. So someone who's like 22 years old has a job and pays taxes and says they're adulting, you're dumb because that's what you're supposed to
Supposed
do
to
when you
do.
have a job. That's not being an adult,
Yeah.
right? Push yourself a little bit, set the bar a little higher, and then you can use that. So, anyways, before we go too far down my angry rant road, um, I thought we'd come up with some advice here for people that are actually considering, or how they should reject someone.
Ooh,
And I
I've got
do
a
think
little
it's
graphic for
dependent
that.
on. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I do think it's really dependent on time, as in how much time you've spent with uh, the person, how many dates you've had. So, if you want to whip that up,
Yep. Up on the
here we go.
screen now.
Thank you.
Hmm.
If it's just a date or two, a text message or a phone call is fine. You don't need to go meet them face to face. It can be short and sweet. And it's up to you if you want to give them something to chew on, to think about and take forward with them, give them that feedback. But in the end, just be polite and go on your way. If you did have three or more dates, and I'm saying this three is arbitrary, right? You can still have three sort of whatever dates. If you've gone on enough dates where it's kind of like you know this person a little more deeply and
Hmm.
basically if you've gone out with someone more than three times, that means you like them well enough to say, hey, we're going to be looking forward to something in the future. Like it doesn't have to be super in depth, but it's definitely more than just your random like Tinder dinner. So let's say this person, three or more dates, the phone, text message is no longer acceptable, or in person, and that's kind of up to you and what you're comfortable with. But at this point, going out with them on this many dates, you are in deep enough that you probably owe them an explanation for why it's not going into that future direction. Right? If you were cool with them for the first few dates and you've been sleeping together, and something has changed or come up, or you found out something beyond, during that time, then that's something that you should share with them. Uh, Being honest does not necessarily mean that you have to be hurtful. Uh, it's just it's just helpful for everyone, and it's good. It's a good practice to be honest with people. So do that. And again, if they exhibit any kind of aggression, just leave or hang up the phone.
Hmm.
In the case that you're dating for months and like a long-term relationship kind of thing, there is no excuse. You cannot do it over the phone. You cannot do it by text. That is childish.
It's weak. It's
Yep.
weak.
Yep. And you know, y- you've spent so much time with this person already to not do it in person, saying like that. I mean, again, unless you're fearful or they did something horrendous, if this person cheated on you, maybe then you don't necessarily have to do it in person. But even then, I would still say it will help with some kind of closure for you. But you should have that longer talk about how you came to this decision. If you have not been honest up to that point, then it's time to be honest because it might be like hit them out of nowhere and they might not know what was coming. So gotta be straight with them. Superficial reasons for any things don't necessarily hold up at this point, right? You can't be like, hey, we've been together for 4 months, but I don't really like, the fact that you don't tip. Like that, right? It's like that
That's
should have come up way earlier because
uh,
they would have done that from the beginning. Go ahead.
exactly. Yeah. No, it's just I'm laughing at that because it's like there are people who are dating for months that they will come up with superficial reasons in order to spare people the embarrassment or whatever it is
Yeah.
as to
Again, that's a
why.
total cop out.
It is a cop out. So you need to express the exact reason when you break up with somebody who you've been in a long term relationship with as to why it's not going to work. There are a plethora of reasons that you can be honest about that is just an acceptable reason. Like if you've dated them for 6 months to a year, it's like I can't see living with you. When you sleep over at my house, it's not. This is not uh, a viable thing. Long term wise, you're not happy with the way they're treating you over the long period of time. Relationship has gotten to the point where it's one sided. She wants out or he wants out. Acceptable reasons, things like that. You can't spare people the from the truth. They'll never learn from it, and they'll just treat somebody else the same way. So, but you also have to have the nerve to actually explain it to people. So, and that's hard. I mean, we can say all of this stuff, but like when you're actually faced with that situation, a lot of people do shy away from from it. It is not the easiest thing to do, or as the young youths say it, it's very cringy, which I
Listen,
hate. I hate that word.
it's this is time for the big boy pants, okay? If you are going to be in a relationship, an adult relationship, you're going to be having sex and you're going to be doing adult things with this person. If you can't bring yourself to communicate with them and be honest and truthful with them, you should not be doing this. You are not at the level yet. Like you
Mhm.
can stick to like holding hands and you know writing love notes or something. I don't know what kids do in school. Anyways, the point is, if you're gonna do adult things, be an adult.
Yep.
So sorry. Anyways, and the last bit before we go on to the last part was you should probably discuss the way that you want to separate. Like if there are any rules you have, hey, you can't. I wouldn't be comfortable if you keep in contact with my family or things like that. I don't know. There's so many layers that you can go through for that.
Everybody has different rules, right?
Right.
This is one of those things where you have to set boundaries about things. Like
Right.
it really gets really complicated when you start incorporating friends, because depending on who friends are whose, you could end up with a smaller or larger friend group than you had, depending on the breakup. And a lot of the times, if you brought in somebody who really didn't have very many friends and they started incorporating themselves in your group and going to your friends and explaining, hey, I just broke up with her. I'm having a really hard time. I would really appreciate that you didn't invite her to parties and stuff like that when I'm going to be around. That can be hard for people. It's not just you sometimes that you're breaking up with, because if they really liked her and it was just a relationship that you couldn't get over, there is a theoretical possibility that you could end up losing your friends because they could choose her over you. And that happens.
Yes, it does. Yes, it has.
Yeah.
um, and then, there's other little things you need to wrap up. So if you're in a long-term relationship, take care of those things in that last meeting.
Correct.
Uh, and the last little bit before we finally finish up this whole topic, if you've had sex with another human being, then you have to text, phone, or talk to them in person. Ghosting someone after you've swapped bodily fluids is it's just low.
Common courtesy to talk to them.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is
If you've let
common.
this person that close to you and you can't bring yourself to communicate with them afterwards, then you should probably start figuring out what's going on in your life.
Hmm.
Because this is this sort of like, oh no, 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 no responsibility, no feelings, no, 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 I don't want that. But you want to go ahead and go through the actions. It just it doesn't go together. So people should just be a little more adult about the whole thing.
You didn't want to use the term, did you?
Oh, that's the hey, you know what? If you think you're adulting in your relationships, you're
Look,
probably screwing up.
look. If you are comfortable enough to get naked in front of somebody, you should be comfortable enough to tell them, "I don't ever want to see you again." That's the thing. It's like, come on. It's like what are you gonna what do guys have to do? It's like, it's like be a ventriloquist and then be naked and have their penis wear a hat or something. I don't know. It's like I'm just trying to.
Wow.
I
What
know.
where are you going, man?
Well, the thing about it is like the whole act of actually sleeping with someone is very intimate. Yet you're unable to talk to this person and say, "I don't ever want to see you again." It's like, come on. It's like you should be able to suck it up and say, "It was nice, but goodbye." And if you want to be that like way about it, then absolutely, but expect some blowback. But it's very funny to me that people can be like hookups and everything like that, and all of a sudden somebody like they're texting and then you're not feeling it anymore, and they just ghost them or refuse to talk to them. It's like, seriously, that's weird to me. So
Yep.
yeah,
Well, I think this is a good. I mean, basically, we got it out there. There's
it's a very long segment. We actually
you
went,
don't. Right.
yeah. So there
Go
was a
ahead.
lot to cover. Honestly, there was plenty of things to talk about there. But it's not an easy topic, right? That could have been an easy focus segment because there are so many things to peel and open up that it's one of the more difficult topics I think that we've discussed here.
Yeah, and a lot of it just comes down to the person's individual experience with the thing. Just like anything else, you get more and more comfortable with talking to people, being emotional, sharing yourself, and rejecting people is a part of that. Being rejected, learning how to deal with that, and also rejecting others. Like it's going to happen in life. It's
Yep.
going to happen in the workplace and everywhere else. So might as well try it when it's more simple like this. Uh, that all being said, we're going to jump on to topic 2 here, and that is how can I get rid of retrospective jealousy of a partner's sexual history? So
There's
this
a
is
whole
a
lot
really
of
curious one.
there's a whole lot of bad about this because essentially um, you're going to be figuring out things that you probably don't want to know the answer to. So this is my perspective on the whole thing. But let's go to the topic at hand, and I'll read you what our op has said. So our op's name is Randy Butternubs 2. So we'll read what Randy Butternubs here has to say. Um, so he says, "Oh, whoops, I'm on the wrong one. Excuse me." So representative is actually by Funky Monkey 2024. That was our next topic. Excuse me. How can I get rid of retrospective jealousy of a partner's sexual history? By Funky Monkey 2024. Here we go. I didn't quite know where to post this question, but r/dating and r/sex seem like the most appropriate. I'm a 29-year-old male, and in a nutshell, I've struggled to connect with women. My longest relationship was 2 years when I was 17. I've had a few flings slash ons s since I'm
One night
stand.
stands.
Thank you. I'm old. I don't know what that stands for. I'm very still very inexperienced because I can literally count the number of occasions I've had sex on my 10 fingers. That doesn't mean anything, but we'll go on from there. I've been seeing a therapist for the past year, mostly discussing my struggles with connecting with people in general. One of the insights that I've been made aware of during these sessions is that I'm incredibly judgmental of sexual success of others, which makes me feel inferior in the dating world. With women, I found that I'm entirely turned off when they reveal that they've had a diverse sexual history. I feel like by default, I'm waiting it out for a girl with a similar sexual history as mine to come along. and all will be swell. But I'd like to put in work to overcome my inferiority. I just don't know where to start, and my body count and getting my body count up doesn't seem like a healthy option. And I really like to be in an LTR, long-term relationship. I knew that one. I knew that one.
Ding
Anybody
ding.
else? Anybody else going through something similar? Any advice? All right. First things first. Sexual history is something that you definitely don't want to know about your partner, but whether it's similar to yours or not similar to yours, all it does is cause problems. And this is my experience with regards to this. One. Two, your own personal sexual history doesn't mean crap in the long term if you find somebody that is somebody you want to be in a long term relationship with. For you to put undue pressure on yourself regarding your own personal sexual history is self defeating in my perspective. Reading this, it's one of those things in which you have an unhealthy perception of what a healthy sexual history is. Um, you have to remember that there are no standards on how many people somebody has to sleep with before they reach a certain age. That is an asinine way of thinking. Sex is one of those things that you definitely want to share with somebody who is interested in you for sure, but at the same time, it's a very intimate act, and you don't want to be just going around willy nilly and having sex with every random person. There are a lot of people who think it's just about getting off and then going on to the next person. That's absolutely fine if they really want to think about it that way. But you seem like a deeper person, and to me, that is unbecoming to think that you having slept with less than 10 women and that being a problem is a real issue. It doesn't matter. And I think a lot of people really get hung up on this. And I don't know if it's peer pressure or what they see on television or what, and they get these like weird thoughts about um, how they should be and where they should be in relationships and how many sexual partners that they have. To me, it's not something you really should really worry about. What Funky Monkey really needs to really focus on is actually finding someone that he wants to have a long term relationship with, and put the sex to the side. Don't even make it part of something that you should really worry about at the very beginning, especially at the beginning of a relationship. Put more emphasis on yourself, and what'll end up happening in the long run will happen. If you meet somebody who has slept with 3 times, 4 times the amount of people that you have, but is a wonderful person, but you can't get over the fact of her sexual history, then that's self defeating. She could be the person that you've been waiting for, but you immediately are rejecting that person because of their history. I don't know. It's definitely not something on the top of my list when it comes to considering a partner, because I would definitely would want to focus on personality and how I get along with the person first. Attractiveness automatically is just associated with the fact of when you're trying to go out with the person, but it's like focus on the things that are actually important, and I think he'll have better results. But that is my 2 cents. Tim, what do you think?
Well, I think that the sex partners thing is the same as drinking. And by that I mean, I don't know if you remember, but back in college, actually, I think I don't remember if it was your dorm or someone else's. They, they went around slipping pamphlets under people's doors with information about drinking habits for students because they wanted to myth bust. Everyone was going to college thinking everyone drinks like crazy. I got to drink like crazy. It's going to be wild. I got to be wild like these people. And what the information showed was that most people don't drink that heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the idea that people do that that causes people to do it. So it's the same thing with sex, right? Uh, if you look at the last 3 generations, and I'm talking about like millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, the average number of sex partners these people have in their lifetime is something like, I mean, at this point, it's between 8 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy not being able to count more than his 2 hands, like, that's
It's
standard,
normal. Yeah, it's normal.
right, and
Yeah.
so that means there would be just as many people with more as less than this guy. So his concept that somehow he's way behind or that he's got no experience because he's just got, a few partners, it's just BS. It's just not real. And but he's letting it dictate not only how he feels about himself as an inferior person, but what he thinks about possible dating partners and how he's going to go about the whole process. So I got plenty to say to this guy.
No,
Um,
I let loose on the guy. So it's like I think you've got to. I think the thing about it is I think you have a lot of the same comments I do with regards to what he's thinking because I think he's just coming from a position that is unrealistic. So it makes it difficult for him to sort of ground himself again because he's built it into himself that the idea of a man in this world needing to have more sexual partners than fingers on his hand is I don't know where it comes from. I mean, like, has he been watching How I Met Your Mother too much? Is he thinking that he should everybody should be like Barney Stinson? Is that really what it is? I mean, like you have all of those characters in television that have been quote playboys that go out with girls and seemingly always end up sleeping with them or doing stuff like that, and you're just like thinking it really in the end ends up giving people like a false sense of what sexuality in the modern society is, and it's like then they're all always on the far end of it. So.
right, but that's why do we watch these shows? It's sensationalism. It's extra. It's a life that is too wild for you. That's why you're watching someone else do it. So these people that are having, you know, basically every episode it's a new sex partner. There are people out there doing that. They are not even close to the norm though.
Hmm.
And people that live that life generally have some issues that they're dealing with. They're trying to make up by, you know, having sexual connections. I won't say everyone. There are people out there that do this and very healthy and have a great time doing it. But it's just not even close to the norm. So we shouldn't live that way, right? I think that everyone in their lives at some point will have to deal with these feelings of like, how many people have I been with? How many have you been with? How do I feel about that? And you don't have to be a jealous person to deal with it necessarily, but if you are jealous by nature or have some self-esteem issues, then it's more likely it's going to cause a problem for you. And I think we see more of this in less experienced daters. Like they can be intimidated by someone else's sexual experience because they feel like they might not measure up or that they're going to fail somehow, and
Hmm.
that not having that experience makes it so that they can't possibly please their partner. Um, and some people actually discuss it at the idea that their partner didn't value themselves enough to keep their sexual partner number lower, which is some real bullshit. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like that's just putting your moral values on someone else, and it's not even necessarily morals. Because here's the thing: this dude actually wants to have way more sexual partners, but he's gonna look down on the possible girl because she would have more than him. So like, where's your mirror, buddy? Honestly, I don't know. That part threw me off.
Well, it was one of those things. It was almost as if he was treating the women that had more sexual partners than him. He was like projecting his jealousy onto them in a form of anger because it's like, well, how dare they have more sex than I do? It's like, the hell, the hell are you thinking? It's
Right,
like,
but also that he wouldn't necessarily want to go out with them if
yeah,
they had more sexual partners.
yeah,
And if he had more and he got rejected for it, how would he feel then?
yeah.
So like,
It's absolutely
yeah,
ridiculous to me. Yeah, it's crazy.
and this this concept that like the sexual success of other people's somehow makes him inferior just has no absolutely nothing to do with him. Like if he had sex with more people, would he then be superior to them? And like how many people does he have to have sex with before he levels up? And like, like does does having more sexual partners equal more happiness, more fulfillment, more sexual prowess? And then what does having fewer sexual partners actually say about a person? So I don't know, man. I think that if you are looking down on someone for having more sex than you, and wishing that you had more sex at the same time, there's something that's disconnected in your head. And the sex shaming thing, it just needs to stop. There's no there's no reason that you don't gain anything from it to say that someone else should be having more or less. There's just no point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
it's an interesting way of looking at it. Like, because this topic is interesting because um, this is more a comment on like the perception of men and how they should act in modern society. Uh, I just think Funky Monkey is just sort of bitten into the apple, you know. It's just like just sort of sold himself that it needs to be a certain way, and he can't get over himself, and it's affected himself in a way. And like my example was is that, you know, what if he does meet somebody that he really really likes, like sort of, oh my god, she's the perfect woman for me, and we get along really great, and he focuses on the emotional side and the personality, and the attractiveness came with them going out, and she was really attractive, and they start having a really decent relationship. Then along the line, he finds out she slept with 50 guys, and he hasn't slept with more than 10. And by the way that he's acting, that's immediately like, what? No, no. She has everything I want except the fact that she slept with 50 guys. It's like,
right, and if
the
you went
hell is
out the
wrong with that?
next week
Yeah.
and just went on like a frenzy and just screwed a whole bunch of people to catch up, would they then be okay? Would
Yeah.
it somehow mean something different?
Yeah.
No,
No.
it's just stupid.
It is stupid.
So
Yeah.
I do have advice for him. Okay, here's how you get over your inferiority here. Number one, step one, recognize you aren't inferior. Your thinking on the process is, but you aren't actually inferior.
Hmm.
Two, stop drinking the Kool Aid. Not everybody out there is having crazy sex. Not everyone who has crazy sex is different because of it. Right? And step three, date people for who they are and how well you connect. Sex is not the primary purpose and it shouldn't be. It's a icing on the cake kind of thing. So just get over the thought process. Go out there, meet someone, connect, and just see what happens.
I'm interested in what the therapist is saying because, like, what is the therapist? What is the therapist doing? Like, I honestly believe that like the therapist could be giving something similar, like information that we would be giving, but at the same time, it's like it is blatantly obvious that the hangup is with your this fixation of needing to sleep with more people to even yourself quote up. But like the very end when he says it's like I'm waiting for a girl with a similar sexual history as mine is almost saying it's like, well, I need to get my number up there, but if my number is really low, then all I want to do is date chase girls who are also really low like me. It's like double standard. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
also
yeah.
who wears that number on their forehead? Like,
It's
how do
like a
you know?
it's like a scarlet
How do you
letter.
know who to?
Everybody has a red number on their chest as they walk around.
Yeah, how do you know who to chase in this case? Like, are you going to go out and connect with someone and then find out the number is not what you want and then just stop because of that? This guy probably might. I don't know. I I wish him well, but he's got to drop some of this stuff if he wants to be successful in dating.
Yeah.
Um, before we go on to the next one, though, I wanted to sort of like segue. It's close connected topic, but not necessarily. Um, and that's the whole absurd concept of virginity. uh, and this conversation does happen in the same way between like it's not just how many partners, but like whether you've had a sexual partner or not. And there are people out there that are like, I would never date a virgin because I don't want someone who's not experienced, or if this person had sex, I'm not going to date them because I only want a virgin. And like, just the concept sort of evades me. And then you've got other people out there that are going around, putting their mouth on 34 people's genitals, and they still call themselves a virgin. So,
Then there
and
was, well, what was popular, I think, when we were in college was that I've never slept with a guy, but I've had a lot of anal sex before, and that's not really having sex with a guy. It's like, the hell are you
yes,
talking about?
that's really big in like Oklahoma and places like that too. Like, I'm saving myself for marriage. Well, maybe not the other holes, but
The other, yeah.
just the one.
but that happened. It's like it's crazy. It's like no, 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 no. It's it is this weird misconception, and like, and I don't want to stereotype a bunch of people, but it seems that a lot of these things come from overly religious households. And it's one of those things where there's undue pressure from parents onto their children who have raging hormones that insist that they need to stay chaste and not go out there and basically sleep with people, which then leads to absurd concepts such as I've never slept with a person, I'm still a virgin, but I've given this many hand jobs, or I've had oral sex with three girls or four girls. I haven't done anything, but there's all sorts of other things. You're still having partners. You just haven't done the actual insertion into one sexual organ into another sexual organ. It is insane. And the thing about it is like society, we I think, and I hate to go back to this, it's like life expectancy for a human just 100 years ago was what, in the 40s, I think. It was like by the mid 40s he would be dead. So it's like, you weren't living very long if you're out in the old west, or even in the 1800s, mid 1800s and stuff like that. Medicine hasn't stepped up. Like human genetics hasn't caught up to that point yet. So like you've got people in their 19s and their 20s just with raging hormones just trying to sort of quell them up, and sometimes that's not controllable. And it leads to crazy things like this. So I don't know. Am I wrong in all of this? I was like, that's just my way of looking at it. I mean, religion like is another thing. I mean, you see, what is it, like the old rules of like, like you shouldn't be having sex before marriage. The Catholics, is Muslims. I see a lot of Muslim girls who refuse to admit that they've had sex with somebody else, but they've done quote other things.
Right, but this is like this is the shame and sex thing, right?
Hmm.
You use shame and you use fear to control the youth to make them not do what they're naturally inclined to start doing. You you teach them to abstain, which is just BS. You you keep them in the dark. You tell them they're going to go to hell, like all these things, and then you wonder why they have a messed up relationship with sex going on. Meanwhile, look over to our neighbors across the pond. They have a much better sense of responsibility when it comes to sex and knowledge about sex and that kind of thing, and they're making much better decisions. They're not having as many teen pregnancies, and sexual diseases aren't spreading as quickly over there. So, like, people, just drop all the nonsense. Go educate yourself. Have some conversation with people that you respect that know what's up. You know,
Yep.
come here. Listen to us. We will guide you. We will
Come
guide
hither.
you.
Come hither. We will be your shining beacon of information to help you through this rocky shoal of relationships. So, all right. I think we've talked about that sexual history and as otherwise. We've gotten to the point of that. So, we'll go to our third topic. Now, this is a topic that I picked myself. Normally, for anybody who wants to pull back the curtain a little bit, uh, Tim, Mr. Acorn here, is usually the very prepared one. I usually go via emotion and try to read what he's picked, but I want to go a little bit more off the cuff. I see what he writes and does something like that. So in this particular case, I actually selected this one, but this is more of a general topic that I thought, you can cover in anything like that. But it's easily overlooked sometimes, I think, because um, the just the acquisition of a partner can be very, very difficult, especially if you feel like you have a lot of things going against you. And in this particular case, I think the major thing that Randy Butternubs here that has going against him is a little bit of a lack of self esteem. And I want you to take it away and give your initial points to this.
Okay.
Yep.
Randy Butternubs, by the way, amazing name.
Yeah.
Um, Advice for a 22-year-old guy with trouble approaching women. I've tried dating sites and they simply aren't for me. I'm not horribly unattractive, but I'm not amazing looking either. I've got quite a few extra pounds that I'm working on. That being said, it doesn't tend to make me the greatest first impression, and I'm also extremely shy and stumble over my words a lot. I would like some advice on how to approach women my age and just start a conversation. I do not want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I'm not afraid of rejection, more so afraid of weirding someone out. Any advice for someone who has not had good luck with dating? Yeah. So my initial response to that is, welcome to the club, buddy.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a lot of people out there are struggling with these same things. And it doesn't have to be the weight thing or the attractive thing. Some people are not confident. Some people don't have the experience, so they think they don't, they don't know how to even begin.
Hmm.
So you're not alone here. I don't know if that helps you out, making you feel any better, but the fact is you're working on it. You're trying to work on those extra pounds, and you recognize what some of your weaknesses are. So you stumble over your words, you're shy. These are things you can start working on, and you can find ways to improve on. So my advice is to be at least know that you're not completely hopeless and that you do have a place where you can begin. And we do have some advice here to give you. Um, I'll let Z start off with that part, but we should be able to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the thing about it is I say there's a little bit of a self-esteem problem because the first thing that he mentioned was his looks and his weight. And the thing about it is you gotta own it. You are who you are. And when it comes to dating, confidence is such a huge, huge deal. And I don't think it's emphasized enough because I think what a lot of people think or understand is that they believe that people are just naturally good looking and the women will just immediately come to them. It just doesn't happen that way. You have to be able to overcome your body issues and consider yourself more confident and just not care. There you say that you're afraid of rejection, but you're afraid of weirding somebody out. That it in itself is you're clashing with yourself because if you're being rejected for being weird, then you've basically said that I'm okay, but I'm not okay. Own who you are. That is the first thing that I think that you need to really worry about. And at 22 years old, you're in a weird situation because a lot of times at 22, you are in a post college environment. So you're not going to be even in an environment where there are going to be a lot of women around because you're going to be starting your professional life. 22 to 24-year age, you could be like grad student or something like that. So you want to try to put yourself in a situation where you can meet women. You say you're working on your weight, go to a gym. uh, you go running, go do activities. There are run groups. There are all sorts of exercise activities where you can put yourself with a whole lot of people where where people do not care about issues of image or weight or anything like that. Everybody's there for the same goal. Um, it might be one of those things also that it's not also a good place to pick up women, but that's not the point. You want to work on your words. You say you stumble a lot. You need to put yourself in an environment where uh, you can small talk or talk to women and have no pressure. You need to get over that part in order to be able to actually approach a woman and go on a date with her if you find her attractive. So getting over that initial stutter is super super important. But there are all sorts of ways of doing it. We had in a previous episode where a guy met his girlfriend because he complimented her T-shirt. It was something they bonded over. Like she was wearing, I think it was a "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" T-shirt. He just happened to be a very big It's Always Sunny fan, and that's how you approach the person. It's like, oh man, I really love your shirt. Did you watch the episode last night? Um, and that could be a way to start a conversation. If you're a bit of a tech geek like I am, if they're wearing the new Apple or Google Watch or have a phone that they are fiddling around with, or maybe even having issues with, you can go up and say, "Oh, see, you have the new iPhone X2, or whatever the new iPhone is." And it was like, I just got it, yes, last week. You know, technology on it's pretty awesome, but it runs pretty slow, and you can open it up that way. Just find little things that you're comfortable talking about, and go from there. That's that I think
Yeah.
is super important, especially to get over the stumbling part, because I think expertise in a subject will prevent people a lot of times from stumbling over their words because they know where to go and how to talk about a particular topic.
Right. These these things are useful for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
not just this guy here, but if it if it's like his body image is what's holding him back from even trying to to get started, then I think what he needs to do is tackle that first. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily need to be going out finding the girl that's like the hottest one in the room and just charging at her and saying, "Hey, here I am. What's going to happen now?" Like if he can get to a point where he's more comfortable with himself and
Mm-hmm.
he's got some exercise in and he's got some connections with the exercise group that he joined by your example, then things are going to start to happen naturally. He's going to start to make those connections and he'll get more confident in just communicating with other people. And so some of my advice here is like any situation where you're nervous about speaking, it just helps to be prepared. Right? If you can have a couple of funny stories or anecdotes on hand that can be applied to general conversation, you can just whip those out anytime. And in the same vein, you could have a few pocket questions you can ask to keep the conversation moving along. And I'm saying, do not pick yes or no questions. Do not pick short answer questions. You want something that gets them thinking and gets them sharing something of themselves and something you can take on and further a conversation. If you show up and you say, "Where are you from?" Bam, one word answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can, if you're good at conversation, you can take that somewhere. But it seems like his nervousness is going to keep him from being able to do that. So maybe starting off with a question that's a little more
Open ended.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or just that kind of requires them to think for a second and maybe draw something from themselves to share. I would say smile and make eye contact. Generally, you'll get it back, and that actually will increase your confidence during the conversation. So if I'm in a group of people and I'm not familiar with any of them, I have attention that I carry with me, and one of the ways I get rid of it is just put on a smile, make eye contact, and people naturally, reflexively will mirror that back to you, and that just makes you feel more welcome. It makes them feel more, you know, they actually feel better about the whole thing, and so that's a great way to do it. And the last one, you can recruit, and by that I mean you don't have to start chatting up that exact guy or girl that you're interested in first. If she or she is in a group, you can actually talk to some of her friends or even the guys that are there with them in the same. If you're a guy, you can talk to the other guys there that are in
Mm-hmm.
the same group with them. And that moves you from being an outsider, just kind of cold calling to a person who's already, who's there to be a person who's jiving with the group that is already getting that sort of acceptance from the people around that person. And that makes it a lot easier just to start in and start having a conversation. A lot of people have been complaining on Reddit that meetup groups, yoga classes, wine tasting things like there are a lot of women that go there because they enjoy the thing, and there are a lot of guys that go there because they're just looking
To
to
me,
hook up and connect
to
with a girl that's there.
yeah.
They actually have no interest in the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to be another issue. So for our 22-year-old friend here, I would say if you're going to start to choose areas, I don't know if it's sports or interests, hobbies, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to start picking these things, pick something that you are genuinely interested in knowing something about, or something you're interested in doing yourself, because that will go a lot further than you showing up there and just trying to work your way through the people in that class until there's nothing left, and then moving on to the next one.
That is a very good point, because you see, I've read the same, like, posts and stuff like that you have, but I've gone to those things. Like, I've gone to, they have something where we live, where you can go to all of the embassies. They have events, cotillions. You come in dressed up, you meet young professionals, you meet the diplomatic staff of embassies and stuff like that. And it was one of those things in which, like, yeah, it was like people had really different expectations as to what people should be doing in those groups. Uh, I was with a friend of mine, and we went to the Viennese Ball, at the Embassy of Austria, and it was great. Where there was waltzing, people learned how to dance, stuff like that, and there were people there that were single, like single guys who didn't come with a date, that were looking to pick up women. And there were groups of women who were there who actually were interested in the Viennese embassy, the embassy of Vienna, and wanted to learn about stuff, but they had no interest in actually meeting guys. So I've actually been in a situation like that, and it's very interesting. And then, like, it helps to be interested in what it is because you naturally can talk to people that way, and unexpected connections happen. And it was great, and it was funny because at the end of that, they had a it was like a little mini rave, which was sort of ridiculous at the embassy, where they got like a yeah, it was great. It
You
was like
use
after
ballroom dancing to rave?
yeah, it was weird. It was so the experience went. They were explaining waltzes, and people would pair up, and you would learn the basic steps and stuff like that. And I had a good time. They had like catered food and everything, and it was great. Then after a while, once that showed up, like a DJ showed up at the because it was like a multi-level like atrium. So there was like a level that looked onto the main floor on the bottom. He always showed up, and all of a sudden dance music started happening, and we were like, "What the hell is going on?" I don't think a lot of the older people expected it to happen, but they were having a good time with it. But I was with a friend of mine, and she met a whole bunch of other girls that were also interested. They were dragged in because their boyfriends were either in the diplomatic corps or other thing like that, and they ended up going and getting drinks afterwards to a bar, and just was like, "Oh, how are you doing?" It's like, and it was like a young professional meetup, but it was fun. I mean, it's like so. Yes, you're absolutely right. If you're going to pick, let's say, a wine group or a chefy group or a sports group, be interested in that topic in that area first because it definitely makes you more honest as your intentions as being there, and that in turn, I think, will make you more approachable to women. So,
Yeah, they can
mhm.
sniff you out, man. If you're in there and you're just showing up to try to like skis on the girls, especially the yoga classes, those are the worst.
Worst.
The dudes that are sitting there like checking girls out and all they want to do is like stretch out and sweat and not be hoggled or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't be that guy. But I will say this: your ballroom thing kind of let this up in my head. Dancing is like it, it is like 100 free tickets to the show.
Yeah.
Like, if you can dance, you can get numbers left and right, especially if it's something like salsa.
Uh,
But when I was in doing my master's degree, and I b- was able to audit basically any undergraduate class I wanted to. And so I practiced some Chinese. And took a Chinese class. I also joined the salsa class because I thought, why not? I was single at the time. What the hell? I get in there. There were like three guys that had signed up for the class and something like 20 something women. And the guys had to be passed around to be the male dancer in these. And some of the women had to fake it and be the man like, in
yeah.
this
Yeah.
in the pairs. But I cannot tell you, it was like the
Choice.
Las Vegas buffet.
Yeah.
And and the fact that like you didn't even have to be really good at it. You just had to be like there and happy and not be sleazy about it. And it was quite an experience.
I,
So
I'm yeah, you would have a good time, but it was one of those things that you were actually interested in salsa dancing. So in a way, you became the optimal partner because these women have really no intention of trying to pick up a guy in that class. They too themselves wanted to just learn dance and have fun. So it's like if you end up having the skills, which I know you do, it was a bonus for all the women in there. So it's like, oh, okay, he's
and the
really good.
second you can
Yeah.
the second you can show that you know how to move your body a little bit, it gets you big points. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, that is hilarious. But we could go into more into salsa dancing, but we're gonna leave the embarrassment probably for another show. Um, so we did have a bonus topic, but I think we're gonna skip that for tonight because we ran long on the initial topic here, and we've gone over about an hour and 10 minutes. So I think it's time to we'll skip the bonus topic. We'll save it for next week. But I think that's going to do it for us. Any final thoughts on any of the three topics that we talked about today, Tim?
I think, let's see, quick fire. Um, be kind. If you have, like, from our first topic about
Hmm.
rejecting people, um, if you've ever been rejected, you know how it feels. So do whatever you can to make sure that when you reject someone else, that you're being as kind as possible. Uh, this topic, how do I get rid of retrospective jealousy from a partner's sexual history? Grow up.
Hmm.
Honestly, if you live long enough, you probably have a few partners. Some of them will be good, some will be bad, whatever. It doesn't matter. And the number of sexual partners your partner has should not influence how you see them and what value they bring to the relationship. So let go of those preconceived notions. That's about that, though.
Yeah, yeah. And remember, if anything, unless you are in a relationship that is in some way harmful, ghosting is always bad. Remember that. Remember that, people. Never ever ghost. That is just what I honestly think that should happen. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you very much for joining this episode of Twitchline here. We're on every Wednesday. We start approximately at 10 o'clock, so maybe a little later, closer to 10:30, but we're here every Wednesday. So as always, if you can contact us via email at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. You can post articles or tweet us at Twitchline on Twitter. And on YouTube, just search Twitchline Relationship Help and Advice, and you'll find our channel. That's where we archive all of our shows. You can go there, check any past edition of Twitchline, and it will be right up there on YouTube. We also start streaming on YouTube, so for all of the people who are watching, hello. And then you can take us on the go if you want to. If you have SoundCloud on your phone, tablet, or other mobile device, you can just search Twitchline Relationship Advice, and we are on SoundCloud. But for Mr. Acorn, I am Hodo. Thanks for joining us today. We'll join us again here on Wednesday and possibly on Sunday, where we'll have one of our Sunday focus segments, which has not been decided yet, but we will make sure that we'll let you guys know. But remember, tomorrow, possible Freeform Thursday, where we talk about anything. And I think I have a lot of topics I definitely want to talk about tomorrow. So
Yep.
catch us on Thursday, I think, if you want to see us just shoot the breeze.
Right. Jump in. Have a conversation.
Yeah,
Let us know what you're thinking about, and if you got anything you want to, work out, we can do it live.
live. So for Acorn, I'm Hodo. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
Good night, everyone.